Hi there, welcome back to our channel. In today's video, we are going to look at 8 important things that you need to consider and of course check before you consider or go on without a building project in Nigeria. Now, this borders around the security of your investment and of course to ensure that you won't hear about your building or whatever being demolished tomorrow by the government and stuff like that. Now, stay tuned as we take you through all this. We know that building a house in Nigeria in 2025, especially if this is your first time, requires awareness of both technical and bureaucratic landscapes. Of course, if you want to stay out of trouble, which I believe nobody wants to lose his investment. Now, there are certain things you have to ensure that they are in place before you go on. First on the list is land ownership and documentation. So if you want to buy a land that you want to start a project, the first thing you need to look at is the land title. Ensure that the land has a verifiable title in the name of certificate of occupancy or deed of assignment or a registered survey or all of them together. Now, this will help you to do the next step, right? Now, if possible, if possible, the best thing to do is not to go for a family land if you're a novice. But if you have the proper guidance, you can actually get a family land that is okay. Now, the next thing you need to do once you've confirmed that your land checks the first box is to do your due diligence. Now, the due diligence here implies conducting a land verification search at the Ministry of Lands. Now, by law in Nigeria, every land is supposed to be registered under the ministry, showing exactly who has it. So if a land has been sold from one person to another, if you go to the ministry, they will tell you, okay, 5 persons have owned this land. It's either from so and so person to this person to this person. To give you a history of the land. Now, once that checks out, and again, if the land is a government property, if you go to the Ministry of Lands to do it, they will tell you, stay clear from this land. This is a government property, or the land is okay. Go ahead, it's reserved for residentials. Then the next thing is the survey plan. When you finish doing your due diligence and you confirm that the land is okay to buy and for the purpose you intend to use it for, the next thing is to register that land in your name. Once you do that, of course, you have to engage a licensed surveyor to survey and demarcate the land and then take it to the Ministry of Lands to register it in your name. And that, of course, makes the land legally yours. The next thing is, of course, to obtain your building approval. Get a building approval before you build. If you missed anything during that due diligence stage, once you go for approval, the normal thing is for them to check again and confirm that the place you want to build this particular project is actually okay to be built. Item number 2 here is financial planning. Now, budget wisely. When you're planning for a project, first of all, think of what is going to cost you to obtain the land. The next thing is your design for the project. You get it done. Then the approval for the project. Then after the approval, then think about the construction process and all the things you need. The labor you're going to pay and of course the materials that you're going to pay. And when you impute all these costs, the next thing you think about is the contingency. Now, in your head, if after your calculation you have, for instance, 20 million, add 10 to 20% of that money as your contingency because anything can arise in the future and it affects the cost you've already calculated. Now, the next thing is stage payment. If you stage out your projects, if you break your projects down into milestones, in project management we call that work breakdown structures. So when you break it down into milestones, you see that it will be easier to take on the projects. For instance, you have your foundation to DPC, DPC to decking, DPC to roofing stage, then the parapet, then the roof itself, then the plastering. Then, of course, if you stage it out like this, it will be easier for you to manage, right? Then the next thing on this financial planning is please avoid shortcuts. Avoid shortcuts. For instance, do not buy cheap material. Do not buy material because they are cheap, unless they meet the quality standards you want for your project. Then the third thing you need to think about is engagement of professionals. This is also a very vital thing. When you want to start a project, as soon as you're settled with the land, the next thing is engage an architect for your building design. Now, it is very important for the design, the drawings, and the permits application. In most cases, the architects will help you to do this. And of course, if you discuss that with them at the beginning. Then the next thing is think about your structure. Think about the structural integrity of the building. So do not just finish your architectural drawing and say, let's zoom off the site. No. Do your structural drawing. That will help you to understand the kind of foundation you need, the kind of reinforcement walls you need, and how many you need for each of the columns, and how many columns you're going to put in the building. This is very important. This will help to ensure that the building is safe and complies with the Nigerian building standards. Right? The next thing after that is done, after all your designs are done, think about the builder or the contractor. So engage a building contractor. And again, it's easier to manage a building contractor than manage someone whom you have a relationship with. I'm not saying that somebody you have a relationship cannot handle your project successfully. Yes, they can in most cases. But try and be professional about your building project execution. Right? Hire a trusted one with a proven track record, and you're good. Then the next thing is engage a quantity surveyor, because now a quantity surveyor will tell you what it will cost you. The next thing is the construction process basics. You have to know. That's the number 4 on our list. You have to know the construction process basics. For instance, as you engage on a building construction project, you know that you break it down with an engineer into phases. For instance, the foundation to DPC level, if it's a duplex, then the DPC to decking level, the decking, then the decking to parapet level, the parapet, then the roofing level. Then after that, you now start thinking of, okay, how do you go into the finishing, right? So most in Nigeria, of course, we understand that most projects, in some projects, of course, particularly places that are sandfield, you need a raft foundation, or at the best, we do a wide strip foundation in most places in Nigeria, depending on the soil type, of course. So in most cases, it's better to have a soil test done. Then the next thing is when you consider the carcass of your project, right? You need to understand the times when your engineers are talking about the block work, the beams, the columns, the slab, and the rest of them. Have an idea what you're going into. It's important. Then the next thing is the roofing stage. Now, choose a durable roofing sheet and design for good drainage. Think about these things at the beginning, at the planning stage. It helps. Then the next thing is the finishing. Think about the finishing of your project. Understand what is involved. When you talk about the plastering, the tiling, the electrical, the plumbing, the doors and the windows, and the painting, and every other thing, the landscaping of your project. You need to think it through from the beginning. It's very, very, very vital. Then the fifth thing on our list is the legal and security considerations. Right? Now, when you buy the plot of land and you want to start, please do not encroach into other people's property. Do not. That is why it is necessary for your surveyor to demarcate your plot with beacon stones and register it. And once that happens, you know that from this beacon stone to this beacon stone to this one is your plot. So you don't need to encroach. You don't need to go further than what belongs to you to avoid dispute with your neighbors. Right? Because when disputes start, it could stall the project for a long time. The next thing you need to consider is monitoring. Right? When you are handling a project, it's better to either you are there by yourself to monitor it, or apart from the contractor and the engineer, have someone who will from time to time visit the site and look at the quality of things done, and of course give you a report. And of course, if there's anything that needs to be corrected, the person will correct it. This will help you to reduce theft in the site, and of course, poor workmanship by the end of the day. Right? Now, then the sixth thing is utilities and infrastructure. you need to consider whether your site has an access road that could be accessible during the dry season as well as during the rainy season. Security. Now, we know that in Nigeria, in most cities and places you may want to be in Nigeria, there are no public water facilities, or they are not functional. So the best thing to do is, as you're considering your building project, think about borehole. Think about, where am I going to site my borehole, and when am I going to do that? Where am I going to keep my tanks, and when am I bringing in all these things? Right? Then the next thing is think about electricity. Is there already a pole that crossed around your site? How do you connect? Do you need to make some payments to the community, or is everything already stationed for you? Then apart from that, the next thing you need to think about is, do you need an alternative power supply? Do you need a generator, or do you need a solar system? So all these things are the things you need to consider. Then the seventh thing on our list, remember we said there are 8 of them. The seventh thing on our list is the environmental and community concerns. Now, when you start a project, think about the drainage. Look around you and see, is there already planned drainage around that locality? If there is, bravo. Then the next thing you need to do is ensure that your own drainage flows into the general one, so that everything will, drain away. Thing is, neighborhood associations. Look around you, ask questions, and understand and identify with local rules and contributions. Are there security levies to be paid? Are there power dues to be paid? Are there whatever that they're doing around the community? Involve yourself, because they are the first responders in case there is anything happening within your site. So you need to identify yourself with them. Then the last but not the least, which is the 8th item here, is inflation and supply chain. Now, prices of course fluctuate a lot. For instance, you could go to the market to buy 1 bag of cement today, and you get it at 10,000 naira. And by the time you go there next week, it will be 10,500. And maybe after 3 weeks, you go back and you hear that it's now 9,800. What is happening? So this the same happens with rods, the reinforcement rods, and of course the price of other things, as far as the building construction market is concerned. So you need to plan for this when you want to buy your building materials. The next one is made in Nigeria materials. For instance, during your finishing, look at the Nigerian made wires. They are the best I've ever seen, strongest and very reliable. I don't want to mention the names, but if you do your little research, you'll see that there are a lot of made in Nigerian wires that are very good. So these things are the things you need to look at. It's more like a checklist that will help you to ensure that your construction project in Nigeria is a success. Thank you for viewing this far, and I want to urge you, if there are any questions you think we missed, if there's anything you think we missed, or any questions you have, please just drop it on the comment section, and we'll look through them and answer them as much as possible. Thank you for being with us this far, and see you in our next one.